This is it. We've got an Amex Platinum Pro on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't seen anyone relax like this before in the Centurion Lounge. Is he connecting to complimentary Wi-Fi? Oh, my. Look at that. He is. And you will not believe where he's going next. The Amex dedicated card member entrance for the win. Unbelievable.
When you get travel perks with Amex Platinum, you're part of the action. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/withAmex.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search. Match. With Indeed. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/match. Just go to Indeed.com/match right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/match. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
This is Full Change with Tom Laidlaw.
Hey, good morning, Tom. So, big night last night. I didn't see you there. I thought I'd see you at the Stefan Matteau casino night, but you weren't there.
No, I wasn't. They sent Ron Greshner, so the Rangers, said they're going to support us at Ron Greshner. So,
gotcha.
He's much more of a gambler than I am.
Yeah, he was. I saw he was gambling. There were a few other guys from different sports there as well. It was a really fun event. I went with my friends Audrey and Jim at Christina.
And that's for the Matteau Foundation.
The Matteau Foundation, yeah.
That's that to help kids, right?
Yep. It was all charity. They had like a Texas Hold'em tournament. Christine and I got there at 7:15, and we were out by 7:30. We were already out of the tournament. So
is that right? Oh,
not much of a card player. Neither's my wife, so it was quick.
I remember my first year in the league, John Davidson and I told the story with Eddie Johnson on the interview we did with him. Those two guys are big time poker players, and so I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be cool like the rest of the guys, and had a few cocktails in the pub one day, and then went back to JD's and played poker with JD and Eddie Johnson. And about like 15 minutes later, I dropped $250 and I'm out of here.
They cleaned you out. This was for a great cause, so it wasn't.
That's cool.
It wasn't. It's easy when you say I'm going in for $3,000, but it's not. It's funny money. It's charity money, so it's like great.
Stefan Matteau, we become good friends. He's a fantastic guy, and his wife Sue, who's a total sweetheart. She's a very intelligent woman, really guiding him through this stuff that he's doing.
She put on the event. It was she spearheaded. He even thanked her. He gave a whole speech and said that Sue has been doing all the work on this, and it was really well done. It was great for charity. We had a good time. Christine and I had a blast. I saw your buddy Ron Greshner, like you mentioned. He was he did say he's like, I'm going to come on the podcast, so we'll have him in one of these next episodes coming up. And I bumped into Benoit Hogue from the Islanders, he's like, yeah, I'll come on definitely. He said to his wife, he goes, that's the guy about you. He's like, that's the guy I show you the videos at 4:00 in the morning. And I was like, she's like, yeah, he gets up super early. I'm like, he's got a chip, he's got a defect. He wakes up super early. But so your rep is spreading in the hockey world as a guy who gets up early and works out.
And the whole Survivor thing, I think, some of the guys, hockey guys, look at me. You were on Survivor? I think that's so cool.
Well, we had Dave Scatchern. He was like really jazzed about because he was like a big Survivor, like one of those Survivor nerds, and he was really into it.
I'm glad you mentioned him. I got to get back to him. So I told him we'd really work to get him on in the Survivor too.
Yes, yeah, you got to do that. You got to get on that, my man. You got to do it. So as we're now in the second century of shows, we finished our first 100 and wonderful feedback. We're now in the second century, and it's going well.
Amazing. We've done 100 shows, man.
Kind of seems like it flew by, didn't it?
Yeah, I know we talk about that on the 100 show, but the guys like the Scatchers and the other guys that I really didn't know at all, like Ryan VandenBussche and those guys. I mean, really interesting stories what they've done after the game. You know, what guy we've got to get on is Jerry Gillis.
Oh yeah. That's how you pronounce his name.
He's the stuntman in Hollywood.
Is he really?
Yeah, somebody said that to me on the show the other day. We were talking about him. I saw some old videos of us playing in 1980, 81 against LA. Great team player, really good guy.
Let me I want to test my hockey knowledge. Did he play for the Canucks?
Yes, he did. Very good. Nice, good job.
All right, thank you. Jere, not the Jery.
Yes.
All right,
yeah, excellent. Good job by you. Oh.
Today we're going to have on a guy who was just a tough guy. Started with the Rangers, doing some cool things. Today we're going to have on Ryan VandenBussche. He's got a great story.
He does, doesn't he? You know, that's, again, another guy who, and again, you told me about this. I'm a stereotyper like everybody else is, and I thought, this is meathead, beating people up all the time and getting hit in the head. But man, what an intelligent guy. He's got himself.
Absolutely. And I love that you changed in the second half of the second century shows. You said meathead instead of mudhead. So maybe you retired mudhead as a thing that you.
Oh no, mudhead's not gone. I think it's just
mudhead is not gone. So yeah, so it was a great event. Hopefully you'll be at the next one. I don't know. You're not a poker player, neither am I, but it was more of a fun charity thing.
I still love to go away to play poker or not. It'd be fun. Yeah,
it's very fun. I'm going to tell you one quick story. So this is very funny. As we're sitting, it was at 48 Wall Street at Cipriani's downtown. It was such a cool venue, really cool. But there's like a rotunda, and you're up above the stairs. And I'm standing with Christine, and I'm looking down. There was a professional athlete from a New York sports team. Not going to say what team it was. Not going to say what team. But I looked at it, I said, Christine, check that out. And he's just like stuffing his goodie bag with like extra like cupcakes and cookies and all the stuff they were giving away. And I was like, see, pro
hockey players are notorious for they could be making millions of dollars a year. And then Joke has told me that you throw about a bunch of free T-shirts in the middle of the room. They're diving all over to get the T-shirts.
Crazy. And these were just like cupcakes and cookies. And I gave away like hockey pucks and stuff. So I pointed out to Christine. She's like, that's crazy. But it was a lot of fun. Great cause. Great, great. Glad to support it. So people are going to enjoy this episode, Tom. We got a tough guy, Ryan VandenBussche, and I think they're going to be very enlightened by what they hear because he's not not typical tough guy. He's very evolved and very multidimensional. Like yourself.
Yes, thank you. So what we've learned is I don't do any research to these guys, so I want to learn about them as we're on the show. So as we're going through the show, I'm thinking, okay, he's telling about fights, and I'm asking about fights, and he's no problem talking about it. And then near the end of the show, he's talking about what he's doing now. It was like, wow, this guy's a cool dude. Yeah.
It's kind of going down that whole Riley Cote area, like, into mindfulness and wellness. And it's just awesome to see. He's got his own, business, and it's awesome. So people enjoy this show. We got Ryan VandenBussche. Tom, we got one on today. We got a good one. We got a guy who started out with the Rangers and then had a career with the Blackhawks and some other teams. He was always in the conversation for pound, toughest guy in the league. He ended Nick Kypreos' career, and he got his first goal on Wayne Gretzky's Rangers. Today we got on also one of the longest names in Ranger history, Ryan VandenBussche.
All right, great to meet you. I think we talked to each other when I was getting the agent business and you were retiring. Didn't go anywhere, so.
Yeah, no, that was right at the end of my career. I remember that, Tom, way back in the day. Yeah.
You are sick. I got to tell you, as a compliment, you're a sick bastard.
I'm coming from a thicker bastard. Well, compliment.
But I totally when I watched you play. Did you ever back down and say no to anybody in the league for a play?
I probably thought I learned to say no after a little while, once in a while. But it was tough. It was always tough. I usually obliged.
So where'd you grow up? Where's home?
So I grew up in southwestern Ontario, a little town called Delhine, tobacco country.
Oh, okay.
So we're about 90 miles southwest of Toronto, located on the North Shore of Lake Erie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. There's a lot of wineries there now and everything?
There is. Yeah, a lot of golf courses, winery. We've got 40 miles of shoreline, and that's a great spot. And I just 16 different cities, and I always knew I was going to come back here and grow my family, so that's what I did.
Isn't that right? They take the 401 goes through there?
God, no. No, we're off the beaten path, so... Or like QEW and 403, that heading towards Hamilton, Brantford area, and then basically once you get off the 403, then you're about 45-minute drives.
Okay. So I grew up Brampton, so I'm in that same area. Brampton is where I'm from. So
yeah. So we're not that far from each other.
Yeah, definitely. So when you growing up as a kid, were you like a goal scorer? What were you?
Minor hockey. Yeah, I was definitely scoring more goals than I certainly was when I turned pro. That's for sure. But I was just one of those kids that was, I was a pretty good skater and a good forechecker, good back checker. I usually capitalized on my chances back in those days, and I was aggressive. I was always physical.
So I do motivational speaking now, and I talk to kids and I say, listen, I was never the best player on any team I played on. I just showed up every day, did my job. Would you put yourself in that category?
100%. That's something you control what you can control. Don't worry about the shit you can't, and most importantly, know the difference between the two. And that was my mindset every time. Yeah, just do what you can do.
Isn't it amazing too? Like everybody just assumes that because we played in the NHL that you're the best player, but in many cases, like we've done 100 shows now, Tom, and a lot of the guys, like Darren Langdon, for example, wasn't even drafted. Richie Pilon the same way. They just kept on banging away at it, and ultimately made it to the NHL. So.
Oh, that's so true. I remember my dad always saying, as long as you get a little bit better every day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All you just get a little bit better one day at a time.
Yeah, isn't that true? Yeah, always look to get better. And coaches want that, right? So they'll go to the coach from down below where you played, and then next season when they're picking the team, they go, who's the guys that just show up play all the time? They say, what Ryan VandenBussche does. He'll just show up. You don't have to coach him. He'll just go show up and play, and that's who you want to coach, right? That's who you want in the next team. So. So then who were you drafted by in the OHL?
So in 1990, I was drafted by the Cornwall Royals as a 14th round draft pick.
Oh, really?
I'll never forget my ride there. It was a 6-hour trip going northeast to Cornwall, and we were getting close to Cornwall. He says, well, you know, Ryan, you're a 14th round draft pick, and you're not supposed to make this team, so you better do something out there to get noticed.
Oh. And now, had you been in fights before at that point?
Yeah. I was playing junior B the year before as a 16-year-old in Tillsonburg. So, you know, like my style of play, I was never looking for fights, but just my style of play, I was aggressive, but I finished my checks. And you know, those older guys didn't like that. And you know, some young punk looked like a beach boy, you know, finishing. Yeah. They wanted to fight me, and I just never turned them down, and worked out pretty good.
Yeah, especially when you're a smaller guy too. Like, you know, everybody thinks I'm going to beat the crap out of this guy, right? And
yeah. And not a lot of people knew I was a lefty either. Well, I didn't even really know I was a lefty. I just started throwing lefts.
So did anybody ever give you any pointers on fighting, or you just knew how to, you just threw it?
At that age, no, there was no pointers. I had an older brother that was 16 months older than me, and needless to say, we never really saw eye to eye, and we definitely scrapped a lot. They were full of brawls, you know. I was a kid, and then I think I honed in on those skills on the ice as well. So I think that helped me in the end.
So hold on a second here. So you got 16 months older than you?
Yeah.
And you guys could stand there and throw them at each other?
Yeah. We started fighting, you know, literally probably when we were 10 years old, 11, earlier than that. And then my dad would get to a point where he'd like separate us, and he would make us wear boxing gloves, and he says, the winner has to fight me. Oh, we never really wanted to fight then.
Oh, was your dad a tough guy? Was he a farmer or something? Or was he?
No, he wasn't. I don't think he was a tough. He was a goalie when he played hockey, and wasn't any good. He tells me he just loved the game of hockey. He would manage he loved it so much he would manage a local senior A team.
Right.
Well, I got to travel with a team then.
So I get a kick at it. So how are you and your brother now? Do you guys talk about that? What you guys used to do each other?
Well, I thank him. I said, you taught me how to take a beating at a very young age. So I wasn't afraid to lose.
Tom's sister did that for him, though, growing up.
It's funny you say that with the dads, too, because my dad was a big man, like 6'4". He had a farm. His old dad became a firefighter. You know, so all the firefighter guys are over there, you know, drinking beer and everything. They had a ping pong table in the basement. And I was getting to be like 15, 16 years old. I was totally cocky, and I'm beating him at ping pong. And he looks at me and goes, one of these days, somebody's going to kick the shit out of you, and I hope I'm there to see it. He's just like...
Oh, yeah. My dad always made a point of saying there's always somebody out there that's going to be tougher than you.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so you go to Cornwall. What'd you do to get noticed?
Knocked out Owen Nolan.
Oh, did you? Owen Nolan?
He was the first overall draft pick to Quebec that year. And so he was he was a Cornwall Royal as well. And I wasn't going looking for it. I was just, he skated over the blue line and cut across the middle of the ice. And then I met him there and dropped my shoulder into him. And that part did knock him out, but he was fuming at the mouth. So the play ended up going back to my own end, and the puck got rimmed around the boards, and I'm a right winger. And so I was picking up the puck, but my head was down, my eyes were up. I knew he was coming to get me. Right. And, so I dropped my shoulder into him again at that last second, and then that's when I knocked him out. So he missed the first 3 months training camp that year, and
because of that hit.
Because of that hit, yeah.
Wow.
And also, when concussions aren't really that, people aren't really talking about them all that much.
Yeah.
But he missed the first 3 months because of a concussion, and then so the training camp that week was pretty tough. The next day, I got my 2 front teeth knocked out, and butt end. And then that was in the morning. I got my teeth taken out. Then one was pushed back my mouth, one fell right on the ice. And then I go to the dentist that morning after the morning skate, and then get stitched up. And then I go out and skate that afternoon. And then their tough guy, Marcus Middleton, came after me, and we fought, and I did pretty good against him. And, just played an aggressive style the whole 10 days that I was there, and did well in testing. And Mark Crawford, you probably know him. He was my coach at the time. So make a long story short, I ended up making the team.
So did Crawford say anything to you when he knocked out Owen? Oh, no.
I don't recall. No. He probably enjoyed it. He's a sick man like yourself.
Yeah.
But all those
they want him to be playing, right? Because he's the first overall pick, and then now,
yeah, but it didn't matter to him because he wasn't going to be on his team anymore, right?
Yeah.
He was looking at his up and coming team. Right. Owen was already gone because he was obviously the first overall pick, so he was going to be staying with Quebec at the time.
Right.
But now Ryan's known as the guy who's knocked out Nolan. So now you're known. You're a known commodity. You're not some kid who showed up as a 14th round.
Oh, yeah. In the papers, they were talking about this unheralded 14th round draft pick coming from nowhere, knocks out Owen Nolan. So people were pissed at me. A lot of Quebec fans were, I'm sure, mad at me.
Yeah. I didn't know that story. That's fantastic. That's a great story. 14th round pick makes the team by knocking out the first
star player, first overall pick.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great story.
Had quite the training camp. I ended up getting knocked out myself in that training camp. Rod Pasman, I don't know if you remember him. He was Washington Capitals second round draft pick.
Oh, yeah.
And I got a suicide pass probably, a few days later. And I was looking back to grab the puck, and he stepped up on me and just hammered me. I got up, fell back down, got up, went to the wrong bench. You got to get off the ice. I went off the ice. And then, back in those days, concussions weren't really talked about, as stated earlier, and back on the ice the next day. And it was probably not the smartest thing to do, but that's just what we did.
So did the tough guys say something to you, like, we're going to get you kind of stuff? We're not going to know him?
No, there's nothing like that. It was just, their guy just knew his role, and he came after me because after one of his former teammates.
Oh. So you stayed up the whole year? You played junior the whole time, never set you down?
There wasn't room for me on the roster. I was put into a house with, 3 other guys, and there's 2 that were supposed to stay in that house, and then the goalie, Rob Dykman, and myself weren't not supposed to make a team, but we ended up making a team. And then, but they had to sign me to their Tier 2 team to make room for me. So I went and played some games in Messina, New York, and for their Tier 2 Junior A team. And then they made a trade, and then they created a spot for me.
Wow. That's a great story, man. 14th round draft pick doing that. That's cool. So, and then so you played how many years in Cornwall then?
So I was 2 years in Cornwall, and then the organization moved to Newmarket.
Oh,
my last year of junior, so the 92-93 season. And then in January of that year, former coach, my second year in Cornwall, my coach was John Level. He ended up coaching in Guelph, and then he traded for me for my last year, so I went to Guelph.
Then you were drafted by the Rangers?
No.
So in 92, I was drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh.
And then, so Mark Crawford at that time, he coached in St. John's Maple Leafs. So after my third year junior, I had him at the rookie in America.
So you get drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs. What round did you go in?
I was an 8th round draft pick to Toronto.
Yeah. How was you drafted? Did you know that was going to happen?
I did, actually, and I knew Toronto was going to pick me. They came down and interviewed me in the summer prior to the draft, and Dan Marr was the head scout, and as well, if you're around by the 7th, 8th round, then we're gonna pick you up. He says, and I'm like, oh, cool. And but that was a year. I don't know if you remember, but 1992 was the year they took down the curtain where they can draft anybody from anywhere. There was no limit on European players, right?
Oh, okay.
There was a lot of guys that year and a few teammates of mine that were, they're ready to go in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, and they never got drafted at all.
Oh.
So I was very fortunate to kind of to get drafted.
And how'd you feel about Toronto Maple Leafs? Because some people say that, Toronto's a tough market. Toronto, near Toronto, like John Tavares wanted to go back to Toronto. A lot of guys don't want to go back to Toronto. How'd you feel about that?
Oh, I grew up watching Toronto. My stepfather had season tickets up to the nosebleeds for his business there. So, we were able to go a couple times, and it was just, it was amazing. Once I heard my name called for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I was tickled pink for sure.
I know Maple Leaf Gardens is like a church or something like that. It's like you're going to Maple Leaf Gardens as a kid growing up in that area. I'll never forget, I played my first game there, my second game in the NHL, and the first game was up in Boston. I shot the puck in my own net. So I didn't know if I was going to stay or not. So I had to, Freddie Shearer was coaching. So Robert Burkhardt butt ended me. And I sucked.
No, he didn't. He didn't butt end him. He butt ended me.
It was one of those hooking butt ends, but I kind of elaborate. Yeah. Because I knew, like, Freddie Shearer had come to us, myself, Chris Katsopoulos, and Eddie Osborne. I said, listen, you're not going to play the first 5 minutes of each game. You're not play the last 5 minutes of each game. what do you think you could do to help this hockey team?
So he snuffs an all-star defenseman. Snuffed one punch.
I think he was funny because he was right at center ice at Maple Leaf Gardens. My parents were there, and Daryl Sittler was still playing. I watched him growing up, and he comes skating over to me, and I'm thinking, I want to get his autograph. And he's going, "Fuck you, leave now, fuck you."
It's like, when did you retire, Tom?
So 92, 93 would have been my last year, and 92, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I started 80, 81 when Freddie was still. He got fired. Maybe he played me on the power play. Maybe that's why he got fired. So
that'll do it.
So Ryan, how do you get to the Rangers from Toronto?
So after 2 years playing in the minors in St. John's, Newfoundland, Mark Crawford was my coach my first year, and then Tom Watt, awesome guys. They had an opportunity to call me up, Toronto did, and Bill Waters called me up and he said, "Ryan, keep on playing the way you're playing. Warren Reichel was injured at the time. Kenny Baumgartner was injured at the time. Even the guys in the minors, Frankie the Animal Bialois, Kenny Belanger, they're the tough guy myself down in the minors. So those two guys were injured as well, and then they never called me up. Bill Waters just told me, he says, "Ryan, Cliff Fletcher thinks you're too small to be a tough guy in the NHL, and he's going to pass. He's going to wait for Kenny or Frankie to get healthy," and they called them up. So I knew where I stood. At the end of the year, we have our exit meetings. Here comes that airplane again. Pauses. We get there, but
the NBA Finals are heating up. Looking for hot takes on all the postseason action? The Old Man and the Three, presented by BMW, is the podcast to listen to for the ultimate finals coverage. Host and former NBA sharpshooter JJ Redick not only has a plugged-in perspective on the action from his time in the league, but he's also announcing the games in real time for ESPN. JJ has the ultimate insider point of view, and he's taking you along for the ride as he breaks down the best defensive schemes, dunks, and drives from each game. And speaking of incredible drives, there's no better place to tune into your new favorite podcast, The Old Man and the Three, than in a standard-setting BMW. Luxury meets power to create a wholly new driving experience. Push the limits this NBA season with the brand that set the ultimate standard. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
I'm in to fight this war and win it.
House of the Dragon is back for season 2, and so is the official Game of Thrones podcast. I'm Jason Concepcion. Join me and my co-host, Greta Johnson, as we recap and analyze every new episode of the HBO original series House of the Dragon. Season 2 starts Sunday, June 16th, but new episodes of the podcast start May 22nd. Be sure to listen directly on Max or wherever you get your podcasts.
Good. To war, then.
And so, as I'm going to my exit meetings, I'm talking to my father. He gave me some great advice. He says, "Ryan, they had an opportunity to call you up, and they didn't call you up. You ask them what their plans are for you." And so I asked Bill Waters that, and he says, "Ryan, well, we want to sign you." And I was a restricted free agent, so all they had to do is give me a 10% increase, and then they had me by the balls. And so, they said, our plans are to, we got to be pegged for the minors. And I said, "Well, I thank you for the opportunity, but I'm just going to ask you for my release." And look, I would have said that if I didn't have that advice from my dad. And I would have just happy to play in the American Hockey League. I was playing pro hockey, making some money. I was pretty happy. But obviously, my ultimate goal was to play in the NHL. So I'm certainly glad those words came out of my mouth. "Can I get a release, please?" And they gave it to me. So I turned out to be an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. And all of July goes by. There's no teams knocking on my door. Middle of August comes, and I get a call from the Rangers, or from my agent at the time, Larry Kelly. And he says the Rangers want to sign you. And so I was tickled pink. It was a 2-year deal, $350 over 50, and so I had a pay increase, and I was making some American money. And off to the Ranger camp I went. And that's when they had that was a pretty tough camp too. They had Darren Langdon there at camp. They had Joey Oster, they had Shane Churla, Jeff Bukaboom. There's some good meat there.
They had a guy named Gretzky on that team too, Tom.
Yeah, Gretzky was there, and Meth. Yeah,
that's stuff. That's cool. I tell you, that's pretty ballsy too. People don't understand that for a young guy to go into the general manager's office and ask for a release. Like a lot of kids, I know you're an adult at that point, but that's still a pretty ballsy thing to do, right?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I would have asked for that if it wasn't for my dad, seeing things a little clearer than I did at the time.
That's cool. So now you go to training camp. Did you get some scraps in training camp?
Yeah. Darren Langdon. We went at it pretty good, and I fought him in the minors prior to that. He was like, I was playing in his hometown, Newfoundland, and when he was with the Rangers farm team in Binghamton, we had a really good scrap there, so that was.
He's good. He's a good fighter too, right? Like he
was extremely technical. He was a tactician for sure. He wasn't the strongest guy, but he was fighting guys way bigger than him, and always doing well.
So I wouldn't consider you a tactical fighter, right? You're just stand back and throw them as hard as you can. Is that pretty accurate?
That's pretty accurate. I'd like to get in there tight and get my left going and try to hit him before he hits me. That was pretty much the style.
What was your weight? What was your weight when you played?
The heaviest I was probably was a little over 202, but I was probably averaging about 195, 190-ish, right around there. Yeah.
Now, I mean, so you could play the game too, right? I mean, you obviously got known for being a tough guy, but you played the game well.
The coaches that always told me to watch players like, Mike Keane. When I was drafted by Toronto, they're like, you need to watch guys like Mike Keane. When I got traded to Chicago, they're like, you need to be like a Kirk Maltby. I want you to, but for some reason, it was just easier to be a fighter.
Okay, so we ask the tough guys all the time, did you enjoy fighting? Like a lot of tough guys will say that you really didn't want to do it.
Did I enjoy it? Well, I had some anxiety, I think, going, before some games and stuff. There's some certain players, but for the most part, I mean, there's not a better feeling than, getting a good scrap and winning a hockey game. But, I didn't look forward to it, but I thought about it so much where, I visualized myself fighting quite often. And I think that's just why I was fairly effective. I could break the fight down in my head prior to any fight. And but yeah, no, I didn't enjoy it, but I knew it was a part of my role, and it was the easiest way to get noticed, I guess.
Well, can we talk about two specific fights? First, obviously, is Kypreos. You talk about that a lot. So, Tom, you saw the fight that Ryan had in Kypreos, right?
Yeah, knocked him out cold, yeah.
Yeah, so the Kypreos fight, I'll never forget that. So we were in Madison Square Gardens, and I was going, I was already played 2 years at St. John's, Newfoundland. I played my third. Then I signed with the Rangers. I was in the minors again in Binghamton, my third year, and in my fourth year, I was like, God damn it. No, it was my fifth year. I want to make this team right from training camp. So I already spent my fourth year. I had 11 games played in the NHL, but I had a taste of the NHL, and it made me very hungry. And I love the way the Rangers traveled too, compared to these long bus trips. Going around all these minor league cities after 4 years. Yeah. So I came to camp in pretty damn good shape, and won your overall fitness award, and mission game in with Toronto, where it's funny because he was with the Rangers and I was with Toronto, and we kind of flip flopped. And so I was going right before the game. I was going through the lineup, and I was looking for who their toughest guy was, and Ty Domi was not in the lineup. And I'm like, okay, well, Kypreos is pretty tough. I guess I'll probably be fighting him this game. So, anyways, we went at it, and it was unfortunate for him that his career ended, but I was just trying to, obviously look after myself and not get hit, and I ended up just catching him with a lucky one. And unfortunate, it knocked him out and ended his career, but it kind of propelled me a little bit.
Now, have you guys ever spoken since then?
Oh, yeah. No, I saw him shortly after that in the press box in Toronto when we were there, and, we had a nice discussion, and he understood. I mean, Craig could have been me. I could have taken it off the chin, and I just ended up getting him on the chin. So he understood, and there's no hard feelings there. And he was at the end of his career. I was at the beginning of my career. I was hungry, and I had to fight to stay, to get into the league, and he had to fight to stay in the league. So, totally.
Because Tom, when you got knocked out by Bob Nystrom, he called you did he call you in the hospital?
Yeah, he called me in the hospital, and he called me. He pulled me aside for next year. We were playing in the playoffs, Ryan, and so Nystrom was one of the toughest guys in the league, and I'm going around, I'm hammering everybody, and late in the game, games that are reaching, he comes into the corner. It's more my fault too. I didn't protect myself because I knew he was coming. he gave me the forearm shiver into the jaw. And I finished the game. It was one of those things. I came to the locker room and I'm babbling away, I guess, and I fell down and just passed out in the locker room and I had to take me to the hospital. So, but he was great about it. Then the next game was an elimination game. So we're shaking hands at the end and he pulled me aside and he wasn't afraid of anybody. So he wasn't like he was afraid of me, but he pulled me aside and said, listen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you that way. And, isn't that true with the hockey players? I've done a lot of sports, but some of the stuff we did to each other out there and then we see each other after, like, there's no hard feelings. It's like, we're all trying to win, all trying to play in the NHL. So that's the way it is.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. We're all respectful of each other, but sometimes the elbows get up a little bit, but it's not really anyways. I don't think so.
And then to finish that question, Ryan, the other fight I want to ask about was Stu Grimsson when you took on the Grim Reaper. Did you get a sense saying, what did I do here? Like, were you, a little worried?
Well, I fought him a few times, and the first time I fought him, the only thing I proved in that fight was I could take a beating. I remember sitting in the penalty box looking at the scoreboard and I couldn't even read it. I think I'm a grade 3 school teacher for some reason. I was just out to look. But I'll never forget that game because I was called up a few times with the Rangers prior to that. And, I was playing decent, but I haven't really fought yet, right? And so it's been a while. So I was a little anxious to kind of, get into a fight. So my first shift was against Stu and I tried to get him to go. And he did not want to fight at that time. So, he was the wily veteran that he was. He's like, he's going to choose his time when he's ready, right? So sure enough, the next shift I get out there, I'm running around, I'm finishing my checks, and then he jumps on halfway through my shift, right?
Oh, yeah.
He buys it right to me, hits me into the boards, my bucket falls off, and then he looks at me and he's ready to go. His gloves are off. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is not a good start. So anyways, I had a long memory, and so I met him again back in, so a few years later, he was with the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and I was with Chicago, and my first shift was against him, so I asked him to go, we went at it, and I ended up breaking his nose, and he dropped. Then I'm in the dressing room in between periods, and my teammate Dave Manson at the time, he's like, Bushy, Stu is going to want to fight you again. My advice to you is don't do it.
Oh, really?
So I said, okay. So my next shift was sure enough, he's right there beside me and the puck's about to drop. He doesn't say a word to me. The puck drops and then he just looks at me and he drops his gloves and he's frothed at the mouth, right? He just killed me.
Oh, is that right?
And sure, he gets a few good ones and he smashes my nose and I drop down to the ground. I get back up and I continue to fight. Yeah, it was a pretty nasty fight, that one as well. So,
how about, did you fight Ty Domi?
I did. Yeah. He was with Toronto and I was with Chicago, and it was an exhibition game, and it was my third fight of the game. Actually, it was Ty.
Oh,
and he was an interesting fighter, that's for sure. Yeah,
it's like touching the cement block, right? That head of his.
He says to me, "Not fair. You got out of your jersey." And I said, no, it's fair. You wear 2 helmets.
Yeah, no kidding. I always thought about that. Like, you look at people fighting him, and he get hit sometimes, and he never get hurt.
He's Richard.
Oh God, he's cocky about it too. I mean that in a good way. Like, there's no lack of confidence in him. He's loves it.
Oh. Ryan, you fought up. How about your first goal with the Rangers? Your first NHL goal? Do you remember it?
Oh yeah, very very clearly. Skating off the entering the offensive zone on my off wing. Shot it through the defenseman's legs and went short side on Hextall.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was quite exciting for me.
All right. So what was your best fight that you had in the NHL?
I would probably, there's a few good ones, and there's so many good ones in the minors that people never got a chance to see. But that probably the best entertaining fight in the NHL would probably against a guy by the name of Kyle Frederick.
Oh, yeah.
6'7", 245.
Oh, wow.
He was a big boy, and was right in front of their bench. Ended up knocking out 2 of his teeth, cut him over the eye, broke his nose. He cut me over the eye. My hand was cut. We both went to the hospital afterwards. I played 8 seconds, and I got second star of the game.
Okay, so everybody knows if you're going to fight, there's going to be some bad fights too, right? You're going to get beat. It just happens. You're going to get beat. What was the worst fight yet?
Well, that's the Grimsson fight.
Okay.
One of the nastier ones. Wade Belak got me with a really good one too. We fought quite a bit in the minors and in NHL as well, and he smashed my nose pretty good.
Yeah. So have you ever kept track? You ever kept track of how many fights you actually had in pros?
in pro. Well, my last year in junior, I was 46 fights. So wow,
Jesus.
4 games. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But definitely over almost, including exhibition, someone was approximating. It was about 300. Including minors, like pro,
yeah.
So in the American Hockey League, I was fighting every other game.
Right.
And then in the NHL, I was fighting every third game on average.
Wow.
I played 310 games, so it's over 100 fights in NHL and then over 200 in the American Hockey League.
And how's your health now? Like your hands and concussion issues or anything?
You know, I'm fairly, some say I'm not all there.
That's a hockey player. That's no question.
That's right. But no, overall, I keep myself in pretty decent shape. I've learned what you fuel our body with is really important over the years. And I'm 51 years old now, and I'm only starting to figure it out over the last 10 years. But, I left the game, in 2007, pretty beat up, 12 hockey-related surgeries, well north of 20 concussions, many broken bones. And I had a dependency on opioids. In 2007, so I was, popping those things because it made you feel good, right? And they're pretty smart. So, the surgeries that you go through and the pills that they give you, they can shut off the pain receptors, and if your knee's sore, you take these opioids that don't send a signal from your knee to your brain saying that, oh, your knee is sore, I better deal with that. And so you don't realize the long-term effects of those. And, Bob Prober was my roommate in Chicago, and, I witnessed what he was doing firsthand. And that was a real eye-opener for me when he passed away. And so I was introduced to cannabis back in 2000, 2 years after I retired. 2009, I was introduced to medical cannabis. And I was medical cannabis. I didn't think there was any healing properties in that plant. And so, I was told I could grow this legally. And so I looked into it and I applied for my own license. I got it. So I got my license in 2010 to be able to grow my own meds. And I was experimenting with it. And I was selling real estate at the time as well. So I was licensed to sell real estate the summer of 2007 to this day. But the cannabis has helped me extremely with the inflammation and anxiety and a whole bunch of different other ailments. And if it wasn't for cannabis, I don't think I would be here today, to be honest with you.
Well, what's interesting, we've done like 100 shows, and so many guys have had issues that, some of them, maybe deal with alcohol or whatever. We've had Tom, like 6 or 7 guys that have attempted suicide or contemplated suicide.
We did. And we have a lot of guys who have turned to cannabis too. Riley Cote being the most famous one. I don't know if you're friends with Riley, but
yeah, no, I was following Riley way back in the day. I remember, I have social media, but I'm not very active on it. But I'll follow some guys that if I'm interested in what they're doing. And I was following Riley way back in the day, and he was being very vocal about cannabis. And I was already into my own program with cannabis at the time, and I found out it was helping me. And I got off the opioids without even trying to. It was just because I was smoking cannabis. Yeah. So I reached out to Riley, and I commended him for what he was doing and being vocal about that. And destigmatizing the plant, because we were baffled. The whole world was basically and they put cannabis as a Schedule I drug back in 1937.
Yeah. Right.
They already knew the healing properties of it back in the day, and here we are in Canada, 2018, over 70 years later, that it does have healing properties, and it's not addictive, and long-term use is not harmful, and so. I'm just so glad that Canada, one of the good things that the Trudeau government did was legalize cannabis, although they butchered it the way they laid it out. But at least we can legally do science on it now, and we can back up the anecdotal evidence with the scientific evidence.
That's pretty cool. Like, I would talk to Riley the same way. He's really educated himself on the subject. Like, you sound like you've done that as well. It's not just growing it and smoking it. It's really understand what it's doing for you or for other people. So it's cool.
Well, it's my passion project because I got a lot of my time and my own personal money into. I am a licensed producer now. I have a 64-acre farm.
Wow!
30,000 square foot licensed facility where we can legally grow cannabis. We can process it. We work with a lot of the minor cannabinoids, and we can sell it for medicinal purposes. and I also have a psilocybin license with that. So I'm very much into plant-based medicines because of the injuries that we sustained from the game of hockey. And there's not enough weed that you could smoke or consume, and you're not going to die from it. So it's safe for people, and my job is to advocate and to educate people on the benefits of cannabis.
Wow, very cool. I was going to ask you about psilocybin. That's a really interesting topic for me since meeting Riley and talking to him about it. It's just a real eye opener about all the whole lifestyle that comes with the psilocybins too, right?
Yeah, it's quite the amazing molecule psilocybin is, and or people may know it as magic mushrooms, but there was a ton of papers back in the 60s, research papers that were very pro psilocybin, and the Nixon government came in with a war on drugs and kiboshed all of that, put it under the ground until recently, and you can't hide the truth forever, and it does come out. So it's awesome that people are starting to recognize this as legitimate medicine.
Yeah, isn't that true? It's all natural. It's all about money too, right? Like the pharmaceutical companies don't want us using natural products, right?
No, not when they can take that molecule and synthesize it, right, and then create a DIN number, and then there's just a small percentage of people that can make a shit ton of money on it. So it's not right that way. So they're able to manipulate the system and do that. So I'm just happy that it's the cat's out of the bag now, and we can just get more educated.
I love listening to you talk about that stuff because, I think a lot of people view that, here's these dumb old jocks, right? Guys fighting all the time. They don't know anything. But you sound like you really educated yourself on the subject, right?
It's a passion of mine. So it's easy to get educated when you're passionate about something. And, there's so many different molecules in the cannabis plant that, we work with a lot of the miners. So everyone's heard of CBD and THC, but there's also CBG for focus and also inflammation. There's CBN. For sleep.
I take that.
Yeah. And so I'm literally just coming out with a product line, Lakeside Therapeutics, where we are offering in a tincture form and in a gel cap form. It'll be a CBD product, CBG product, CBN product, and a THC product. And those forms. So I'm really excited to finally make that happen. So yeah, I'm pumped.
Can people buy from you online?
Yeah.
And where do they go to get that?
Well, we're going to start off with a company called growtown.ca initially. So probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll be ready to launch that. So growtown.ca, and then we're just getting it out of the gates there and going to work with a couple of doctors. They're going to start prescribing it to some of their patients that have been asking for it. So Dr. Coleman out of Burlington, Ontario, he's been very patient with me, and it hasn't been an easy space to navigate in, Tom. Holy shit, this has been a crazy world. I got my federal license. I applied for my federal license I prepared my license in 2012 to submit it in 2013. 7 years later, I got my federal license, and here we are 4 years later. I was finally starting to come out with a product. So, it's been quite the journey to get to where we are today.
Now, do you have children?
I do. I have two. I have a daughter who's in her first year of university at Magra, New York, and I have my son who's in his last year of high school. So yeah, half empty nesters.
There you go. Now, do they go back and watch any YouTube videos of you fighting?
No, they're not really into it. They have seen a few, yeah, for sure, but they don't bring that up to me. They don't see me as that at all. Sometimes they'll say, "I can't believe that you used to fight for a living."
Yeah. My youngest son in particular, he's 31 now. When he went to college, I went to see him. It was close by. He walks out of the cafeteria with these two beautiful blondes, one in each arm. And he's a good-looking kid. He's got a good personality. I said, "Cody, good job." He goes, "Dad, it's not because of me." He says, "They watch you fight on the YouTube videos, and they think it's pretty cool, so they want to hang out with me now."
Oh, that's awesome. Right on. What's he doing?
He's actually doing very well. He's in the commercial real estate business.
Okay.
Yeah, and the older one, he actually works for a cannabis company out of Canada, Kronos.
Oh, yeah, big company. Yeah.
Yeah, he's there. I think I brag about him. I think he's like director of finance or something like that, so they're all doing well. So it's funny because he gets all the gummies and everything. And I had smoked pot, I think, since the college days. And he came over one day and grabbed a couple cocktails, and he says, "You want a gummy?" I said, "Sure, give me a gummy." I think I woke up like 2 days later at a great nap. 2 days.
Well, back in the early days, it was tough because you were experimenting a lot, right?
Right.
Sometimes you don't know how much THC is in there.
Right.
Especially getting out the black market. And yeah, that's unfortunate because some people they've been stigmatized by cannabis for so many years, and then they'll try it and somebody will give them a gummy, but it'll be from the black market. So you don't really know exactly how much THC is in there. And there could be 100 milligrams. Like in Canada, you're only allowed to package 10 milligrams. Black market, you could have 1,000 milligram gummy. And if you take something, anything close to that or anything over 20 or 10, you're feeling it pretty good. And if you got something that's like 100 milligrams of THC, you're going to have a pretty intense experience. And then those people get turned off and they won't go back to it for the most part. But
I think that's something that people don't understand. I certainly didn't understand when I was younger. There's all different or you call it brands or
strains, different strains.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different strains, and everyone's body type is a little different, right? So 10 milligrams of THC might interact differently with you as opposed to myself, or one strain might be a little bit different because you think of the plant as you got your THC molecule, but you also have your terpenes and your flavonoids, and as a full spectrum have different effects in your body than mine. So as you always start low and slow, and then you find out what works for you, and then you can titrate up as you learn the medication.
So the stigma has really changed, right? It was like, again, way back when I was going to college, it's like you're a bunch of potheads, it's the gateway drug and all those kind of terms. And now I think people like yourself are really educating others to say, no, this is a natural product that's very healthy for you. Right?
If anything, yeah, I was more of a boozer back in the day, and I've cut back on my drinking, quite a bit. Thank God. And I thank cannabis to that, because for some reason, I don't feel like the need to drink. I think I alter my consciousness like everybody else. And I just do it more with cannabis, and sometimes with psilocybin, but I also do microdose a little bit because people ask me, well, what does microdosing psilocybin do? And it's a simple explanation for me. It's like, it's the difference between, watching a high def TV versus not. And I find that helps, and it builds neurogenesis. And we've been battered and beaten in our brains, and I think that you can go down some pretty big rabbit holes if you watch all these studies of what traumatic brain injuries do, and having repeated TBIs over the years. And as we age, it's tough enough, but if you've already had damage, it's even tougher. So you got to be proactive and obviously exercising and eating the right foods. But if the medicine that you're taking is what is the medicine that you're taking, and how is it going to help you? And people need to do their own research and figure it out for themselves, because there's enough research out there to understand the difference between opioids and cannabis, and what that does to your body over the long haul.
Now, where you at with the whole macrodosing thing and all the toad poison and all those things?
Yeah, no, cannabis brought me to that. Did ayahuasca a few times, and I did the toad healing, and I did all that. So macrodosing with psilocybin would be considered, 4+ grams of psilocybin. Basically, how I explain that is, it's a 4 to 6 hour ceremony, and you want to be with a trip sitter that actually, you can trust, like a shaman, as with a medical doctor the first time. And, you can go in there with intentions and this and that, but in the end, it's, macrodosing is, if you have my intention was to, kind of deal with my pain and try to get some help with that and understand, what's going on there.
With your physical pain, right?
Yeah. It's physical, yeah. It's his neck. I got neuropathy, and it's constantly getting numbness. But so when you're dealing with chronic pain, it affects a lot of different things over the time. But getting back to the macrodosing is just think of your brain as a mountain. Someone gave me this analogy, and it kind of resonated with me. Is you're born into this world as an infant with your brain, and picture it as a nice big mountain with a nice big coat of snow on it, and your learning experiences from the time that you're born to the time you're 10 years old are like paths going down, like sleds going down this mountain, create new neural pathways, right? And if you have negative pathways or positive ones, it all depends what you're experiencing at those ages. It's easier to go down them because they're already embedded into your brain, right? So macrodosing, what that does is give you a fresh coat of snow over your thought patterns in your brain, and you don't forget about what happened, but you see it from at a different perspective. You know what I mean? You can understand or look at it from a different perspective. So I think that's what macrodosing does for me, anyways. It makes me look at past traumatic events that's happened in my life to help me understand it a little bit better and deal with depression, anxiety a little easier that way.
I did some podcasts with a woman who's a licensed hypnotist. She talked about what you're talking about, the subconscious mind. And that's another way to kind of reprogram that subconscious mind. That's how she said it too. But that's cool the way you said it with the mountain. I mean, pretty interesting.
Yeah. No, it's pretty groundbreaking stuff that's coming out right now. And like I said earlier, it's been out. It's been out in the 60s, and it's just being revisited again. So it's pretty exciting.
It's really interesting when you learn about how you can train your mind as much as you can train your body, right? And like you talk about putting the foods in. So you want to put healthy foods in your body. You want to exercise, make it healthy. You do the same thing with your brain too, right?
100%. It's no different than any other muscle in your body, or your brain's a muscle as well. So like I'm a big believer in the powers of positive thinking. And the thing that happened to me was I had a book about that when I was 17 years old. And I was never a book reader, but for some reason I read this book and I treated it like the Bible, and I highlighted things in there about, mental toughness and this and that. And whenever I felt, you go through these dips throughout your career and in life today, I wish I still had that book. Somehow I lost it. But, and I would highlight a lot of these things that resonated with me at the time. So I read the book probably 6-7 times, and then I kept it with me throughout my whole career. And I would go back and reference certain things to reinforce in your brain of, trying to find a positive out of something that happened. There's always a reason why things happen. So you just got to believe in the best, moving.
I was coaching a game at Madison Garden. There was just a bunch of guys, business guys out there playing. The guy kept falling down all the time. And he says, I've mastered the art of falling down. I said, no, you've mastered the art of getting up.
Hey, yeah.
So there's always a way to spin it around and say, no, it's possible.
And Tom, one thing I think you're going to like, we should talk about too, is Ryan wound up playing some ball hockey in Afghanistan and made several trips to support the Canadian military. I know that's something that's near and dear to your heart.
Cool. Oh man, I'm jealous. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat experience. Got to meet some of our top generals and meet the troops there, and we would barbecue and cook for them and just hear their stories and it was pretty exciting times.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
Maybe one day. Yeah, people have been asked that a few times, but
you should.
Ready for it?
I'm just finishing up my book, and it's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. It's really like to look back at your life and realize, okay, some of the mistakes you didn't even want to talk about before they open up and you talk about these mistakes and what happened after. It really, for me, it kind of put more focus. Okay, why am I the way I am? Like Tom laughs sometimes when he shows because I'm this blockhead where if I make a mistake, I just power through it. I'd just keep going. And I realized I grew up on a farm with my father and grandfather. And that's just the way it was. It's like you didn't have a choice. If you made a mistake, you're going to make mistakes and just power through it. So really writing the book and looking back at these things, like some of the stuff, I tried to go for the Canadian Olympic team in the 1980s. And I decided brilliantly to go out for a few cocktails first night of training camp. And got back to, we stayed in a construction trailer in Calgary, the parking lot of the old Calgary Corral. And so we got back to like 2 a.m. We decided to take the furniture out of the TV room and put it on the trainer's car. And so the two guys I was with, they went to bed, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go wake the trainer up and tell him we did this. So next day, Father Bauer, who was running Hockey Canada, comes over to me. And again, I'm thinking I've done this fun thing that's like he's going to embrace me and everything. This is fantastic, Tom, team bonding and everything. He adds me a plane ticket, sends me home. So I had kind of blocked that. I obviously I knew it was there, but I didn't want to talk about it even. So like to have now I'm putting it in the book, and like, and again, it's that I'm sure the same way when you're younger, right? You're thinking when you're doing these things, you actually think you're doing the right thing, and now you look back at it, you realize how stupid it was. But so the book, that was that's been one of the greatest things is writing the book. So I had a great time. Yeah,
that's a great story. So how long have you been working on the book for?
Oh, it's been 3 or 4 years. I started the pandemic. I had a real fine gentleman. His wife lost her job. So he got so busy. So he was great. He was nervous. He's a big Ranger fan and everything too. He thought I was going to be mad at him. And he said, Tom, I don't have time to finish. So one of our followers, Deb Anderson, actually stepped in and finished it off. So it's been really, really cool. Like I said, it's just, it's that, looking back, like you've had such an interesting life. That's why I think for you, like the way you are now and the way you talk, like a lot of guys, as you know, a lot of hockey players, they just stay in that hockey world, right? And they talk the same way the hockey players talk all the time. I'd love to see guys like yourself that have kind of broken away from that, educate yourself about something else. It's pretty cool.
I love the game of hockey, and when I retired, as a hockey player, you have no security of where you're going to be. Just any second you can just be gone in an hour. You're to a new city, and new teammates, and all that kind of stuff. So at the end of my career, I wasn't sure what I wanted. Well, I shouldn't say that. During a lockout year, 04-05, I remember thinking, "Holy shit, they canceled the season. Holy shit, I still didn't make enough money playing hockey to retire for the rest of my life." You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? And my dad was in real estate. So I think it was at that time I planted the seed in my head that I'm probably going to get my real estate license, and it was probably going to be the easiest transition. But at the same time, I was having people tell me, "Ryan, if you want to get into hockey, you got to do it right away, because, once you're out for a few years, it's hard to get right back into it. You got to kind of flow right from your career right into the coaching career." And so I thought, well, I want to go back home, and I'm going to get my license, and I'm going to apply to be assistant coach with the Guelph Storm. So I think Dave Barr was the GM at the time. Yeah, probably an old teammate of yours, right? Yeah. Tom, still back in the day. Yeah. And so I got interviewed with him, and he said I had the coaching job, or the assistant coaching job, and they were going to pay me $25,000, and they wanted me to live in Guelph. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting my real estate license, and can I commute?" And he said, "No, we want you to live there." I'm like, ah. So I turned it down, and I made a conscious decision to reinvent myself, I guess you could say, and really got out of hockey and focused on my real estate license. And I was licensed 6 months after I retired from the game. I retired in January 2007. And then 6 months later, my wife and I are selling real estate, and I'm doing open houses on Sunday afternoons where it was just really strange, right? Yeah. What the fuck? I'm used to being on a beach on a boat on a Sunday afternoon. Here I am, like in my mid-30s, sitting at someone stranger's house, But that's what you had to do to get your foot in the ground, and I wanted to be able to keep what I had. And it was, the biggest thing was just having some sort of security. I never had that my whole life. My parents were divorced when I was like 10 years old, so I was always like between, my grandparents, my moms, my dads, my aunts, my uncles. And junior hockey took me away. I was 16 different cities throughout there, and then when I had a nice little farm along the North Shore of Lake Erie, and when I retire, I just want to be in one spot. I want my kids to be grounded. I want them to go to one school, and that's kind of what we did. And now they're leaving, and here we are 15, 16 years later. And
I know. It goes fast. It goes fast too, doesn't it? Yeah.
I know where the time goes.
Well, listen, Ryan, I got to tell you, and I mean this is a total compliment to you. First of all, as a player, I really did admire you. You didn't back down from anybody. You did whatever you had to do to play in the NHL. But this conversation has been fascinating to me. I just didn't know all the stuff you got into. You really turned yourself, like you said, you reinvented yourself, well, probably twice, right? With the real estate, and now with the psilocybins and all the cannabis products and everything. So great to have you on the show. You're fantastic. So thank you very much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Tom Squared. Appreciate you guys both.
There you go.
Thanks, Ryan.
Squared. Thanks, Ryan. Oh, again, one more time. The name of the company, if people want to get your products, is GrowTown.
So right now, it's just the quickest way to market is we're partnering with a gentleman that has an LP. And his website is growtown.ca. Okay. And from there, there'll be updates on, then my company, my medical line will be called Lakeside Therapeutics.
Okay.
So
and we'll have you on again to promote that too. That's fantastic stuff. I like what you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate it.
Great to talk.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was another fascinating interview with a guy who's made a full change into something, he reinvented himself.
Yeah, no kidding. Ryan VandenBussche. It's funny because I really didn't know him. I think we spoke at the end of his career, and I was getting the age business, but I just had this view that here's this blockhead that's just standing there throwing punches as fast as he can.
That's interesting because you say that you don't want to be considered just this blockhead who's out there cross-checking people, but you're stereotyping guys as heads out there throwing punches.
No kidding. It's exactly the truth. And I realize that's what people do with me too. Like I get some situation that they think, well, he's just a dumb jock and everything, right? But and I just love seeing like Riley Cote was like, there are a lot of guys who are like that, but they really moved on from hockey, loved hockey and everything, but now they go to their own. Is that something unique too? Like not many guys, a lot of guys get into sales, real estate and everything, but the whole cannabis product thing.
Yeah, and those shows, I really like those because I watch your reactions and you're really engaged and you're really excited. Like a little kid. You get that little kid kind of like fired up. You're like, this guy's really cool. And it's really cool we have those.
Yeah, especially like the bulk of our, probably 3/4 of the show was more talking about hockey and the fights. I mean, I always switched to what he was doing. And it just, yeah, I guess it shouldn't, like you said. I guess I'm stereotyping as much as I don't like it stereotype, but I'm just thinking, wow, it's unbelievable that he said.
These are hockey shows. Obviously, it's hockey. Everyone loves hockey. People listening to it, we do, but they're human stories, and that's what's that's when it gets really appealing and compelling, is when we start talking about people's real lives. Because after the hockey's done, these are people. That's our common experience, you know. And that was a great one.
That's been kind of the thing for you too, right? Because really, you've been a hockey fan, but you really hadn't spent much time with hockey players. Now,
no, but I did spend time with hockey. I mean, I grew up playing hockey with hockey players, and they're just as fucked up. Now, professional hockey players are probably more fucked up than regular hockey players.
I think that's been one of the surprises for you, though, how messed up we are.
Yeah, but you know, I came out of TV, so actors are all messed up too, and models are all, everybody. You have these amazing. You're really, really good at this one thing you do, like the best in the world at it. But you're a mess, you're alive.
I mean, and we think that one thing is so important too. Like in the whole big scheme of things, as much as I love hockey, it's really not. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not
break your leg. Let's see how important it is.
Yeah, no kidding. And Ryan VandenBussche, good show. I like that a lot. Good job getting him too.
Yeah, and if you like what you're hearing, leave us a review on Apple. 5-star reviews help. We got some good ones. We'd love to hear some more, and share it around, spread it to your friends, and keep on listening. Thanks for being a part of it.
Great job, Mr. Smith.
All right, Grasshoppers, thank you for listening. We had a fantastic show. We'll see you next time.